This is The Convergence.
So maybe let's talk for a couple minutes about where do you see sort of Web 3.0 going?
A lot of it is, I'm pretty embedded into a lot of these communities and these art communities and stuff like that as well. I honestly, I hate to say this, they're not going to last.
No, I agree.
No, a lot of these people, great artists, very intelligent people, they just don't have the mind for how the industry is going to scale and how to navigate the scaling industry and stay alive. Because at this, and I kind of hate to say this, but in the reality of the situation, my product, the fact that they don't have to understand Web3 technology whatsoever, and what an NFT can do for them, what, trading value, that kind of stuff. They don't need to understand any of that.
Yes.
I'll probably will be one of the first products that comes out that does that. But as soon as I come out, I have a feeling that there's going to be 10, 15, 20 more. And then nobody's going to even look at these art projects, because when you look at your watch and be like, well, I understood the journey for this one. I don't understand owning that. And so,
it's a real challenge. And I think it's what's good. We've been saying this, even when I've had NFT artists on the show, recognizing that without utility, there's not much there. And I think the difference in a collection like Jay Pierce is a good sort of, for instance, Jay's an established artist, right? I mean, he's an established artist that works with major, stars like LL Cool J and Samuel L. Jackson. And I mean, he's already got a huge following outside in both his shoe design work and as well as his physical art. So adding NFTs to a collection for him makes sense because his collectors are already avidly trying to acquire his pieces, which are becoming more and more difficult to get. And then there's this new opportunity to obtain an NFT. And the NFT, interestingly enough, in his platform is more, yes, you obtain the digital artwork, but there's parties, there's access to events, there's communication, there's all sorts of things. You can get first stab at physical paintings if you're an NFT collector. So it makes sense to be an NFT collector of his because it gives you access to the physical asset. Until Meta becomes a big thing and people are decorating their offices with artwork in Meta, I don't know how that works. But I think the combination of the two, getting a digital asset and then a physical asset being mailed to you, that's sort of a cool thing. And I think that's where there's a place of that this will play. I just don't think going on to Fiverr, let me do it right now. How much can I get 5,000 NFTs for? Probably $10. Somebody will create.
Yeah, I can tell you right off the bat, about $15, something like that.
Okay, here we go. 30. This guy only does apes. I wonder why. It's like, but this is just.
And they'll mint it for you for like another 50. It's like, not
much. It's just crazy. And it just doesn't make any sense. But let's be honest. This is sort of the gully washer. What we're going through right now is the gully washer that happened with the .com boom in the 90s. The .com bust did not end .coms. If you're not aware, the internet's bigger today than it was then. All it did was wash out all of the garbage that wasn't worth anything anyways and didn't have any utility, and investors had put cash into because of the FOMO aspect, but there was no real business there to begin with. And so these things to me are a really good thing that's happening, what the washout we're seeing in crypto and NFTs, because it means that on the other end of it, we're going to come out much, much stronger.
Yeah, it's desaturation. Like we're just kind of we're desaturating how much is out there right now. A lot of the confusion, the dust is settling, things like that. That's really kind of how I see the space right now. An interesting thing is, like, as I say, art will go away. I would say that NFT art as it is today will go away.
Yes.
The application of what I'm using with like an NFC chip or a QR code or anything like that. If you're an artist, you should really, really consider embedding an NFC chip or a QR code onto the back of your painting or on the front of your painting, because I've experienced this case before. You may be familiar with this because you've been in the Dallas area. There's this old wine shop, or it's a wine bar that's in downtown Dallas called Veritas. I love it, and
I've been there.
Yeah, they have exclusive art from local artists around there. And the problem I end up running into, I had this one piece sit in front of me, and I remember it. It was beautiful, loved it, and it was very neutral colors, went very well with my wife and I's studio apartment at the time, and I wanted that piece. So I pointed over to the waitress. I'm like, "Hey, how do I get that piece?" Yeah. And here, I'll give you the phone number of the artist, and you can call her and you can negotiate a price and things like that. I was like, "Well, do you know how much it's worth?" I'm not sure. I think you need to call her. And I remember finding out like there's a little card and it said it was like, I think it was like $500 or something like that. Okay. And at the time I was like, I decided, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sit there and call, and I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so at that point, there's that friction. So how do you reduce that friction? Is I can imagine seeing a QR code attached to the physical product. You can scan it, see what the market value is of that piece. And you can either do two things. You can either buy it for the market value, or you can put a counter price on a lot of these NFTs. And of course, the artist or the owner is going to get a notification that they received a counter on the price, and they can accept it, or they can recounter. And at that point, so let's say I just buy it at market value. I don't even need to have a hand of exchange or anything with her. No. At that point, we had that smart contract conversation over the NFT. I put my offer. She accepted it. I own the NFT to that art piece now. I can literally take it off the wall at that point, just take it home. I don't need to do any other thing to take that piece of art home. And I feel like a lot of artists are really missing out on that opportunity because here's the next use case. Let's say we're talking about the Mona Lisa. And I just want to see who owns the Mona Lisa. Well, because it's attached to blockchain technology, and I can go find the NFT, the certificate of authenticity of the Mona Lisa. I can click on the NFT and see who owns it. Maybe it's an organization, maybe it's a person, whatever. But I can see who actually tangibly owns that asset. And so me and my business partner, we were kind of going through this, and it's one of those whiskey nights. We're just kind of like going down these different rabbit holes of NFTs and stuff like that. And we came up with this idea, haven't even touched this idea. So whoever hears this and they say, I want this idea, it's open source, take it. I thought about, well, what about all of the expensive products inside of your house that come with serial numbers, anything that's $100 plus, something like that. And anytime you have to file for or try to get renter's insurance, home insurance, anything like that, you got to go through this long freaking form of writing down the product, the manufacturer, the serial number, and the current value you purchased it for. And then hopefully you still have like the receipt or something like that to the product. So then you write all of that down. It takes hours, if not days, depending on how much is in your house.
Sure.
And then from there, it's like, okay, I finally have it. I can put it, I can send it to them. But then the insurance company themselves, once it's there, they don't know if that person has broken something, thrown something away, resold it,
sold,
whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. So then we thought about, dude, what if there was a way that every product that came with a serial number was minted, it goes into a wallet, and instead of having to file that whole report, you literally hit a button, say connect to wallet, and it ascertains everything you currently own. Yeah. And then you can get your insurance quote based off of that.
That's a great idea. And I have over 100 pieces of art hanging in our house, including 2 pieces. You can't see them on these other walls that I bought at bars, right? Having a drink. And I'm like, that's freaking cool. How much is it? And fortunately, in that instance, they had a PayPal address, and I was able to PayPal and showed the waitress, and she's like, okay, it's yours, So, I mean, they had a system in place. But it would have been way easier. Or what if I didn't want to pay the $250 and I could have negotiated right there? I think the same thing with firearms. I think the same thing with anything that you have to insure separately on your insurance. There's got to be a solution here, because every time, I mean, I don't ever want to change my homeowner's insurance because I have so many things. My addendums, I probably have 30 pages of addendums of artwork and value. And, even on collector firearms, I own a couple of collector firearms, and does it have the box? Does it have the paperwork? All of these different things. And keeping track of all that is really difficult.
Well, it's both sides too, because we thought, obviously it supports the person that is the insured, but it supports almost just as much or more the insurance company. Because can you imagine how many products are probably not in the house when the fire happens, and they have to pay for it because it's on the sheet. But what if, let's say, all the paintings in your room currently, you decide, you know what, I want to liquidate. I'm going to sell all of them. They're all NFT'd, or they're all minted. So then in that case, there's a transaction. You transfer those NFTs. They're no longer in your wallet, which means the wallet has been updated. So the insurance says, oh, well, those were gone 2 months ago. So I don't have to pay for that because they weren't there during the time of the fire. And so at that point, it supports both parties.
Sure.
And so at that point, we're like, that's an idea. I'm not going to, we're too busy for that idea. But
right,
that's a
exactly.
great idea.
And I will tell you, from some of the guests I've had on the show, this concept it is out there, right? People are thinking about how do you take serial numbers for cars, for real estate. It's why I mentioned to you earlier about incubators. I think this is the hot new incubator trend, is incubating these blockchain ideas, because there's a difference between, I think this is the challenge in the marketplace. You've got entrepreneurs that know how to build things, that aren't just idea people, but actually are executors that know how to execute on things. Those people don't understand blockchain technology just yet. So where there's this gap is the two, right? There's the idea people that know how to make that happen, know how to do it with firearms and FFL registrations and all those kind of things, but they don't know how to do the blockchain piece. And there's got to be this marrying someplace out there where these people can come together and meet each other to be able to create these ideas and bring them into the marketplace.
It's an amazing and interesting thing, because I'm actually part of Y Combinator at the moment.
Oh yeah.
And inside Y Combinator, they're talking about, it's interesting because there are people in there that they had an idea, they got in, and they scrapped the idea.
Yep.
And it happens because of a few different reasons. They find out that either the idea is probably it's a CISP idea, the idea where it's like it's a solution looking for a problem, and so they're they end up scrapping that, and they try to identify a problem, or they find out great solution, but they themselves are the wrong person for that type of solution, which is very common apparently. I didn't realize that until I was in this program.
Big time. Yep.
Yeah, and then Y Combinator does this whole shuffling and musical chairs of like different co-founders and stuff. It's like, hey, here's a problem. These two people fit this solution really, really well. And so, you guys see if you guys can build a relationship and build. And a lot of the people that I'm in a circle with right now are developing Web3 solutions. And luckily, we didn't get musical chaired or anything like that.
Sure.
Me and my business partner, we're a little match made in heaven in this situation. But we have found that a lot of people are great builders, and there is so many different things in the Web3 space, and they've really identified. Y Combinator has done a very good job of identifying that just because you may not be the right person for that solution to Web3 doesn't mean that you can't find another solution to Web3 that you're the right person for. And because Web3 is this amazing giant sandbox right now.
Sure.
And it has a lot of opportunity in there. And honestly, I invite so many different people to conversations and stuff like that, just to explore it and see if they, how do they fit? If being a builder or just an early adopter is good for them. And,
well, listen, that concept that you just explained there is a concept that a lot of billionaire investors use. A lot of the Shark Tank guys, including some guys from Dallas that we all know, I have some connections through some other parties, and they always say, they're like, we're not investing in the company, we're investing in the founders, and sometimes we invest in a company that we know is going to fail because we want the founder to develop a little bit, because there's other opportunities in the pipeline that are going to come about a year or so from now. And we need that founder to mature to a point where if his or her startup fails, they can step into this. And if you think about that, as an investor myself, if I put 25K into a venture and it fails, but I create a great relationship with those founders that can help me on other projects going forward, was that a loss or a win? I mean, that's a win, a big win, right? So sometimes it's just approaching things differently. And I'm glad to hear Y Combinator is doing that. And I think the most successful incubator ventures out there are all taking on this same idea that it isn't as much about the idea itself. It's about the people to get it done. So bringing those people together, we'll find ideas. We just need to find the bench. We got to think of this like a sports team. And there's your first line, there's your second line, there's players on your farm team that you're developing. And I think if more investor communities started to operate that way, we would have a much higher level of success, because there are people that aren't idea people, but are executors and can get it done. And those are entrepreneurs too. They just don't happen to be the ones that come up with the first idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. And the trick to it is really just identifying a problem and really seeing if you can develop a solution. And if you can develop a solution, great, but also kind of identifying if you're the right person for that solution. It's a very important piece to it. Like, I mean, of course, some people, myself included in many cases, I would say that you may not be the right person for that solution at that moment, but you can become that right person as well.
Sure.
And that's not unrealistic at all. So that's I would have to say that's my favorite part about Web3, is because we're so early on that everybody is so welcoming and so humble.
We don't have the tech bro thing going on just yet, even though Y Combinator gets a little bit of that tech bro. But you're right. The Web 3.0 community is very interconnected. It's very much like the sustainability community was in the early 2000s, where, everybody was trying to help everybody else out, because a rising tide, floats all boats. Yes. And I think that's a really good point. I think on the other thing about this, and this is one of the things that's hard a lot of times, I think, to understand, is that failure in entrepreneurship, we probably need to just get rid of that word altogether, because there's so many different aspects of things that can happen and change. I have been involved in many projects that were way too early. I mean, the joke in a lot of my friends is I created Slack before Slack created Slack. I did in 2008, 2009. I was all around Silicon Valley pitching this concept, and everybody's like, nobody's going to let their employees talk to each other while they're at work. Are you crazy? And here we are today. So there's just things like that. I've mentioned on the show in the past, I was involved with Build Proof back in 2006, 2007, where we essentially secured the remodeling transaction between contractors and homeowners with a smart contract that had third-party verification and had all these digital ways of controlling the flow of funds. I mean, great idea. We launched it in October of 2007. And it failed miserably. If we had launched it in 2004 or a year ago, it would have been a huge success. So you have to understand, sometimes we many times tie this success or failure to an individual, but there's many, many more factors in that. 80 to 90% of early stage startups fail, and not all of them fail because of the failure of the founders. It could be a failure of the marketplace. It could be being too early. It could be a million other things. And that's why I think it's important to build these stables of entrepreneurs that you can set out on a course to solve. You find a problem and then you rally the team together and they go out and solve it.
Most founders that really hit it big on a project, it is nowhere near their first project.
No.
I mean, I've had many projects, some that didn't even live long enough to even be named. And to find like where we're at with this project and how fast it's growing and the amount of people that are attracted to this idea, it's growing faster than any idea that I've ever had, and we haven't sold a product yet. And yet the idea of it alone has people buzzing about it, and it's just interesting how. I look back and I look at several different software ideas I've had and many different business solutions and all kinds of new API integrations and stuff that nobody even uses or anything like that, because I tried something, I quote unquote failed, which is me just honestly, a failure to me is like you only truly fail if you didn't learn something from it.
Sure.
But I still remember all the lessons that I gained from all of these different business ventures and all these different startups and these different projects that I've worked on in the past, to the point where it's interesting because the outside of a little bit of funding, most of what we do is bootstrapped.
Yes.
I don't have a robust team or anything of developers.
Yeah.
I developed the application in-house. I actually have a small group that's sandboxing and, helped me develop the decentralized API. And my business partner, he doesn't even touch the software stuff. He just touches physical product. So he became the subject matter expert of supply chain management, supply chain, solution development and product design and all that stuff. And that's where his world is from. That's where my world is from. And we found, we just coexist super duper well, to the point where we just made our first hire last week. And it's it's just a content writer. And because honestly, that's the most consuming part of my time now.
Yeah, sure.
Writing.
I want to close with one quick story, because I posted this on my Facebook the other day. I was tempted to post it on LinkedIn, but I didn't want to embarrass him. But I tell the story, and I have someplace I still have the email exchange. 2007, I had gotten this email. I got in this email exchange with a founder that had an idea for a way for employees traveling into work or people traveling to university to be able to share rides with each other. And the company was called Zimride. And he needed a very, very small amount of money and was offering a nice chunk of equity in the company. At the time, I had a software platform. He needed some help with the software. He needed some help as a founder. And I passed. And I was just like, man, I don't have the time for this. Zimride eventually sold for $13 million to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And then John took the proceeds and his shareholders from that and started Lyft, which is now worth $24.3 billion. Now, I could have been the first investor in this idea, but it goes to show. I mean, John technically had a okay exit on the first one, but still used, took his investors on to this next level. So you just don't know. 2007, he's talking about ride sharing. This is way before the age of Uber. And, John was out there pitching this thing on the street, trying to raise 10 grand, to get it started. So you never know who you're going to run into.
It's to close with that too. It's like he took something that wasn't a wild success.
No,
99% of people probably have no idea about that story. And yet he took probably what was worth more than 13 million on the exit was he probably already had a packaged idea of how he was going to start Lyft the moment he exited.
He did.
And so at that point, I'm just kind of thinking like the exit was just the bonus. Like the 13 million was the bonus because he already had an execution ready in mind for Lyft.
Now, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard he carried the shareholders through too, because he said, I developed that idea with your money. I created the product with the enterprise money, or with your original money. But he also at that point saw what Uber was doing and was like, hey, look, nobody knows more about this than me, because I already built one of these and successfully exited. So it just goes to show sometimes you just don't know when an idea is going to hit and when it's not, or when it's going to hit. And I think that's the lesson here. I think it is time though for Web 3.0. I do think that's the great part, is that we're seeing the gully washer right now that we saw after the .com explosion and meltdown. And my hope is that companies with utility like yours are here in the future.
Yeah, well, I hope so too.
Patrick, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. People can find you on LinkedIn, Patrick Skinner. You can find him on AGAMI, AGAMICO.com, which is the watch company that we talked about in the last episode. But Patrick, it was great to jam with you. And thank you all for tuning in again. Make sure you like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and check out the YouTube channel as well. The great thing about the show has been we're seeing a great, strong growth, about 400 or 500 downloads a day right now of the show. We're getting more than that on YouTube. So people are watching these videos. I guess it's because I'm just so good looking, and maybe it's something else. Maybe just YouTube's bigger than I thought. I don't know.
It's the Kool-Aid man behind you.
It is the Kool-Aid man. That's how everybody comes in to see the artwork. But Patrick, thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you all next week here at the Convergence.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.